Economist Dr. Loren Scott is here for a little bit. Dr. Loren, welcome back to Keel. Thank you, sir, for taking time for us.
Well, thanks for inviting me on.
Let's start here. A Joe Biden presidency. That basically put the Louisiana energy industry on life support.
Well, I mean, it is very concerning because if you look at his website, one of the things that he says is he wants to stop all permitting on public lands and waters. And that last phrase, and waters, is really critical because that includes the Gulf of Mexico. And if you decide that you're not going to allow permitting in the Gulf of Mexico anymore, then your listeners need to kind of understand that it's one thing to say there's going to be no more lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico. But once you get a lease, you start to drill, then you start to produce oil. All along that, there are several steps where you have to have permits. Well, if you don't have any more permitting in the Gulf of Mexico, you're basically going to shut down that area. And if you shut down that area, you've shut down Port Fourchon, which is a very important services about 90% of the oil and gas activity offshore, and you're going to basically shut down Homa. I mean, that's their lifeblood right there.
So basically, pardon me, what you're saying is, just so people can get this in their heads, that if it turns out that Biden ends up in the White House, that all those oil platforms, drilling platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, all those, they're just gone. He's going to shut those down.
Well, if he does what he says, first of all, if he does, and if he's capable of doing, I assume, I don't know if he can do this administratively, just writing it with his pen, or whether he is going to, that has to go to Congress. Then, of course, then the election, the elections that will take place in Georgia for the Senate become vitally important to our state. So it is a very worrisome thing certainly for the southern part of the state, not so much for your area, because I didn't see that. I don't think there's anything on his website about doing away with fracking, although I think the presumed vice president does not like fracking. But we'll see. We'll just kind of see what happens on that one.
Dr. Scott, let me ask you this, because President Obama issued an executive order limiting offshore drilling. Mr. Biden was vice president at the time. He could do something similar, essentially bypassing Congress, correct?
I don't know. Honestly, I hate to use those three phrases on the radio, but that three words on the radio, but I don't know. I think when Obama stopped activity in the Gulf of Mexico, my recollection is that was associated with the BP oil spill. It was an emergency situation associated with that until, number one, they could get the area cleaned up, and number two, until they could get assurance from the oil and gas industry operating offshore that they could prevent a BP type spill from ever occurring again. Of course, the industry really responded very quickly to that, and within, I want to say, about 8 months, drilling resumed out there. But I think my recollection was he only stopped it temporarily and associated with the BP oil spill.
How many jobs in Louisiana would this impact if this were to go in place?
Well, I have not separated that part out, the offshore part out, but the oil and gas industry, now, when I say oil and gas industry, I'm including the drilling, the refining, and the pipeline business in that. It supports about 260,000 jobs in the state if you include the multiplier effect. And that's because these are all industries that are very capital intensive and very high wage. That's the other thing. It's not like we're losing an apparel manufacturing industry, which is the lowest wage industry in the state. We're talking about the highest wage industries in the state. Refining is the top in terms of the manufacturing sector, and oil and gas is really, I think, second from the top in all the industries in the state. So it would be a blow, and it would be a blow particularly zeroed in on Homa and Lafayette if the offshore thing goes through. I should include New Orleans in that too. I mean, New Orleans has a lot of oil and gas companies that are associated with the offshore area.
That was going to be my next question. Sorry, on a somewhat related topic. I think it's safe to say that a Biden presidency would be no friend of the energy industry in any form, including natural gas. What are the rumblings there?
Well, I guess the rumblings there are just if there is some move to do away with fracking, that would be a real problem for your area because of the Haynesville Shale that's located up there, a huge play. And by the way, a play that was just in the process of getting ready to take off. I think the prospects for the Haynesville Shale right now, other things remaining the same, is very good. I don't know if folks have noticed this, but the price of natural gas has come up fairly significantly in the last several months, mainly because there's not a whole lot of gas being produced in the oil shale plays in West Texas and Pennsylvania and Colorado and places like that, and North Dakota. So there's not a lot of associated natural gas being produced. That's reduced the supply of natural gas, which has driven up the price and made dry plays like the Haynesville Shale very, very enticing. And so I think we were all set for a very good situation there for a revival in the shale play in your area. But if they come along and say we're going to ban fracking, I just can't imagine them actually doing that. There's just too many jobs associated with that. But for many people, this doing away with fossil fuels is more of a religion than it is a kind of thinking through the impact on the economy. But what we need to watch out for is really Kamala Harris, Vice Presidential candidate Kamala Harris, because I don't think she's a real friend of the industry in any stretch, and she's more associated with the very extreme left end of the spectrum, which is not a very good friend of oil and gas.
Dr. Scott, one more question with regard to gas prices. You mentioned the natural gas, but we were seeing gas prices in our area of under $1.70 last week at election time. Mm-hmm. How soon will we start to see that climb up as we start to hear changes in energy policy?
Well, I don't think that's going to depend mainly on energy policy. I think that's going to depend mainly on the vaccine. Because the primary reason the price of gasoline is low is because the price of oil is low, and the price of oil is low because the demand for oil is significantly way down because of the shutting, the people not driving as much and people not flying as much. And so the key to getting oil prices back up, and we really need, right now the price of oil is hovering between about $37 and $42 a barrel. It's been doing that since June. Hasn't really moved away from that line. We really need about $55 a barrel oil to get the Gulf of Mexico really going again. These prices are just way too low. And so what we need is a vaccine. Once we get the vaccine, and people get comfortable with going places more, especially flying more, but driving more and getting out of their house, then you'll see that demand for oil pop back up again. And when that happens, you're going to see the price pop back up too. So I think the vaccine right now is more the key to getting oil prices up and gasoline prices up again quickly.
Economist Dr. Loren Scott. Great stuff as always, sir. Thank you for your time. Greatly appreciated.
Pleasure. Good talking to you folks up there. Bye-bye.